good evening everyone. I am Varun Aggarwal. I am the founder of ACE. ACE is a new organization which is looking to solve hard problems in our ecosystem by building a network of entrepreneurs. We recently launched our flagship program called ACE. In ACE, we will select 6 entrepreneurs through a rigorous process with whom we work for the next 6 months to help them select a right scalable business idea, work with them to get to the right business models, markets, GTM, help them do a pilot and finally raise funds. So if you have not applied for ACE, I would definitely recommend to all of you to apply to ACE. You can go to changeengine.in to look at the program. The deadline to apply for the program was end of this week, but will be extended by 1 week. So there's still time. Please go ahead and register for this program if you'd like to work with us to build a successful startup. So we've been
just to clarify, I mean 6 teams, right?
Six teams for the program. So today I have Himanshu with me. Hi Himanshu. So we've been doing a series of call it knowledge sessions or others with experts to understand how to build successful startups. Himanshu's background, Himanshu was my co-founder at Aspiring Minds, so we built it together. Himanshu is also my brother. And Himanshu went to IT Delhi Computer Science, which is not good news for a younger brother. If your elder brother goes to such a program, it puts a lot of pressure on you. And he wears multiple hats. He's a technology person, he's a business strategy person, business development person. He's also an angel investor. So he's seen multiple journeys of startups to grow from 0 to 1. And today we'll be discussing the story of Aspiring Minds with Himanshu, which we both built together, started around 2007, 2008, and sold it in 2019 to a company called SHL. So, we look at the Aspiring Minds story from 3 viewpoints. So, Himanshu at ACE, we have this 3-point framework to look at startups. The first is understanding of the problem we want to solve. Because many times when we talk to entrepreneurs, we end up finding that the problem identification itself was not right. Probably they were solving for something which the market didn't need, which they thought the market needed, but the market didn't need. So that's the first lens. The second lens is that once you identify a problem, you have the right business model or targeting the right markets to build a scalable business, right? And the third one is that how do you get escape velocity, right? How do you just get over the hump to a point where you can have hockey stick growth. Right, so these are the 3 lenses. So if we talk about the Aspiring Minds story and look at the first point here, which is identifying the problem. Can you talk a little about what was the problem statement you thought you were initially working on? And did that problem statement go through a change as you were talking to customers, potential users, and so on?
Absolutely. Sure, yeah. Thanks, Varun. So, I think a lot of the audience over here will be very familiar with this problem statement, right? And this is 2008, 9, if you recall, that was a time where engineering colleges were mushrooming around the country. There were some 800,000 engineers graduating, and people were not able to, rightfully say that these are the best candidates to hire from colleges. And college students didn't have an equal opportunity in a kind of way to say that, look, this is the right job, I can apply to this company, get a job. Everyone looked kind of similar. Everyone had an engineering degree. There are some colleges which are really tier 1 colleges where people thought that their students were much better, but those were very few. And most companies had access to a handful of colleges, right? There was a lot of effort. So as one of you would have seen in campus programs, a few companies would show up and you would always feel that some companies didn't come to my campus and so on. So the problem we were trying to solve was, can we create a more equitable, more holistic solution for college graduates to get the right job for themselves and be able to demonstrate their skills and capabilities, because kind of everyone had the same kind of degree and so on, so the resume looked very similar. So that was a problem statement we were trying to solve. We took an approach of building an assessment, a test, something similar to an entrance test you might call it, or a GRE, GMAT, SAT, which will be taken by students to demonstrate their skills which are required for jobs. So it was kind of an employability test. these are, so we determined talking to corporates what are the things they care about, and what we saw most corporates were talking about the same stuff, but analytical skills, language skills, math skills, computer skills, and so on. And they said that, look, this is what we care about. And if they were all doing their own different kinds of assessments in colleges trying to do that. So we said, if we build a test and rate people on a large scale, on this test, then we would be able to connect them to a job. They would be able to show, look, I'm good at these things. And students from tier 4, tier 2 colleges, tier 3 colleges, which didn't have access because no companies were visiting them or no one knew about them, would suddenly get an opportunity to showcase their skills and get an opportunity with companies.
Sure, yeah, sure. And actually, you were saying, so you defined the problem, right? And which was interesting that there was some macroeconomic lens which you were taking, that all these engineering colleges were coming and all these students, and you couldn't identify good from the bad, right? Which is very useful for our audience, because many times when we have been doing now calls with people who have applied to the ACE program, they've been looking at problems from just their vantage point, if they were the consumer, right? Rather than saying that if this is going to be needed in demand. So I think that was one take back I saw for the audience. Another question I wanted to ask, you said that okay, and then we took assessment as a way to solve it. I recall that when we were trying to do this, there were other companies which were saying let's build a platform to get students on that platform, from all engineering colleges on that platform, and then serve it to colleges. Now in hindsight, if you will think about it, you would say, was that a good solution, and was there a solution for the problem statement we are seeing, or it was a bad solution, or assessment and platform both should have been done?
So I think I think that was always a debate when we used to be looking at this business. When we were looking at the business holistically.
Wait, they are saying sound is not very clear.
Okay. Just try that.
No mic testing. People can reply.
Just change. Just do it from the bottom. Dinesh. No. Guys, can you hear us now better? Please just say yes or no on chat, whether you can hear us or not. It's better? Himanshu, do you want to also speak?
Can you hear me?
Can people hear Himanshu okay?
Testing, hello. Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay, cool. Good. So I repeat the question as you may.
Yeah, no, I remember the question.
Yeah, no, but
okay,
maybe they have not heard it. So the question I was saying was that you took a macroeconomic lens and said that there is this problem around engineering students mushrooming across the country. I think you can keep it. Engineering students mushrooming around the country, not students, colleges mushrooming around the country, and companies not having a way to find out who's good and who's not, right? And then you said that we chose the assessment route as a solution. And my question is that at that time when we were building this company, there were a lot of people who were taking a platform route to the problem, saying that we'll build a platform where we'll all get all these students from these different colleges on one platform and then serve it to the companies. Now in hindsight, what do you think? The solution was assessments, platform, and how would you think about the problem which each one of these was solving? Or was it the best solution was doing both?
So I think, we always debated that, right? And I think, of course, if I look at it in hindsight, the full solution is building the platform and the assessments. But I think, and I've always seen that is that where does the value creation happen in a business, right? I think the value creation is in the assessment. That was 70 to 80% of the value is getting created in the assessment, and maybe 20 to 25% of that value is coming from the platform. Just making the platform won't get us too far. I think which we always probably understood.
Yeah.
But I think just to think about scalability, longevity, and operational ease, all those things, I think the platform made a lot of sense as well. So I think over years as we scaled, we realized that the platform would have been quite useful to have.
Yeah.
And we did build some parts of the platform, but as we always say, the habits die hard.
Yeah.
What you start with, your customers get used to that, and then it is very hard to unwind that. So I think just a general nugget, right? And this is always a startup dilemma everyone has. is that what is good enough to go to market,
Yeah.
And you have to kind of balance. Are you rushing too early with a partial solution? Because sometimes you will say, oh, once we have proven something, we'll build the rest of it. But sometimes if you're successful, then the rest of it never gets built because you end up having a lot of new problems as well. So I think that that's usually not an easy answer. There's never one black and white answer to it. But I think absolutely, if I had to do this all over again, I had to choose between a platform and assessment. I would pick the assessment, and just to reiterate, that was the fundamental value creator. The issue was, and the problem was that students' resumes didn't have enough information to really say student X is better than student Y, and they were not reliable. You could write anything in your resume, and you could get picked for any random reason, right? So the reliability, the solution was really the assessment and the scores.
Sure.
So the delivery mechanism, of course, could have been better in India, but I think that having both would have been better.
But what you're trying to, if I rephrase in some of the learnings, is that one, you are saying that if you look at platform as a solution, platform is only the solution of the problem to get all these resumes. But the real problem was that who's good and who's not good,
Exactly.
and that without an assessment was not good. So the value creator was the assessment, which was really helping make the process efficient. But almost the way you're saying platform is hygiene, because it kind of gets you efficiency, scalability, and so on and so forth. And we latched on to assessments and not as much to platforms, which kind of created some inefficiencies in the business, right? And you kind of mentioned a very interesting dilemma for entrepreneurs, that what is good enough to go, and are you able to then keep creating deeper value in that only, or create value, ancillary value around it, right? And in today's time, maybe platforms become quite default, right? And there are no-code solutions also to do platforms. So I think that problem is a little easier to solve, where you are working on the core value, yet there are software as service players, there's no-code solutions which can maybe help you stitch a platform around the core value which you're giving. Would you agree to that? Or?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, there's some platforms which are themselves powerful, right? Which are solving the need can get solved by the
platform itself.
So you're getting a lot of things connected together and making their interactions easier. Right? Uber is a classic example.
Yeah.
It doesn't run a car, but it's a platform, right? And it connects people who want to drive somewhere and people who want to get a ride.
Yeah.
Right. So, I do believe that building the core value is critical. But distribution, deployment, and what you see is that organizations sometimes end up just building the core value, and they never get to scale because they don't do the what I call the delivery of that value through a platform. So the platform enables the delivery of the value. So you build the value, but how do you deliver it at scale?
Fair.
And make it accessible at scale, and that's where the platform comes into picture.
Got it. Just changing gears a little, right? So we were talking to the college student as a customer, and the problem statement of the college student, right? That's where you said we began. What about, because of course we built it together, so I will some other details. Aspiring Minds is one of the unique examples which are doing both a B2C and a B2B business. So what was your thought of problem identification on the B2B side, and did that evolve over time as to what were customers really, B2B customers looking for, and how did that influence?
So the journey kind of, were we building a B2B business? No, but were we wanting to create value for a corporate? Yes. We were telling them that to give you access to a lot more higher quality students, and at that time IT industry was scaling very quickly, and they all needed good candidates, right? They needed good students who could be trained and deployed on the projects. So we were trying to solve the problem for them of identification, finding those people. When we started going to corporates, what we also realized, because we had to build credibility for a test, what we realized was they were quite hungry for the technology as well. They said that, look, this test is great, it can predict success for us, and so we are more than happy to buy the test, and that will help us build credibility. So one thing which you have to realize in B2B businesses is that being a monopolistic vendor for a B2B business is very hard. They will not buy everything from one company. It is very rare successes. There are successes like that. For example, Microsoft Windows is a success like that. But there are very far and few successes where everything for a particular problem is being bought by from one vendor. So when you see that dilemma, then it was us being able to provide the assessment capabilities allowed us to bring their entire hiring on a standard. That okay, if you hire from a database, you get the same quality parameters, and if you buy from, or if you hire your own, you get the same quality parameters, and that was a way to make the system more credible. You know that because we are seeing the values in the assessment, they said that we want access to the assessment for other purposes as well. So there was hunger by corporates for that, and as a startup, you're always hungry for customers and money, and corporates can give you good money. So we did start selling to corporates as a SaaS offering, where they could
Assessments of the SaaS offering.
assessments as a SaaS offering, where they could use our assessments to do that, apart from access to our database as well.
So, if I summarize, what you're saying is that we went to corporates to say that buy this database of qualified students, but they said, hey, we would like to buy the assessment which you are using to qualify these students and standardize our entire hiring, whether we source or they source on this assessment, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is a good segue to the second question, right? And business models, right? And this clearly shows now that this is a company where there is a conflict between two business models, and maybe I can explain the conflict later, right? Like simplistically, if people are hiring from your database more and more, and you are charging them per assessment on their own sourcing, then these two business revenue at one place is a revenue loss at another place. While to support your B2C business, you would like them to use the database more and more. While to get your B2B revenue up, you would like to sell them assessment as a service more and more. So where did this lead ultimately? Did you also see it as a conflict or not? And from your point of view, I know we can have different vantage points from this. And where did it lead to clarify what we must be doing?
No, I think and this is so I have a few viewpoints on this B2B and B2C thing, right? Was it a conflict? Yes, it was. And in the core value, if you just dive back to our last conversation, right, around what is creating value, the assessment was creating value. You're giving the value to corporates directly as well, and you're giving it to them as well. So many corporates, for example, chose just to use the value in their own hiring. In their own hiring, and they didn't want to look at the database. On the other hand, B2C business in the engineering schools are very successful as well. Now, what eventually, in my view, the conflict is not as much on a B2B versus B2C, but it is about your organization and its focus.
Sure.
I believe this is an insight that the DNA of an organization which does B2B is very different from a DNA of an organization which does B2C.
Yeah.
And that is a very tricky tricky thing to balance out. There are always competing priorities. A large customer comes and says, I need this feature and I can spend more money with you guys.
So you're saying even software development, where
your product
technology,
everything changes. Your management focus changes. Your management gets dragged into escalations from large corporates. Then you're not worried about your B2C issues.
Yeah.
Sometimes the issues from the B2C side come that our students didn't get enough opportunities and because these corporates, and so the business model kind of becomes a bit fuzzy. And it becomes a bit challenging.
Organizational priorities are also fuzzy.
Yes, priorities at every level you can see that stretched. And again, just to reflect back, if you look at it globally, large corporations, very few businesses are both B2B and B2C. Again, you can probably be a dozen, 2 dozen businesses which have been successful at the same scale. There might be 80-90% B2C and then 10-20% B2B or the other way around. But at the same scale, it was hard. I think so. When it comes to confessions, I would confess that while we were very successful with the B2C product in engineering, we did enough work. Did we do enough to win it? No, but did we try? We did try to take the B2C product to graduate schools, to B.Ed schools, and so on. But in my view, we weren't successful there because of the lack of focus, the lack of priorities, more corporates interested in buying what we are selling, and why the product development assessments for all kinds of people were created over time. And so I think it was a dilemma. I do believe that one should, especially for a startup, right? And I'm sure people will find, oh no, look, these guys are able to do that, those guys are able to do that. But a startup focus is very, very critical on execution, because unless you put focus and it's always a do or die battle for a particular thing, it's very hard to win anyways. So to make yourself win, you have to focus on something so that you solve that problem, rather than wake up and say, oh, I'll solve a different problem which is easier to solve.
Yeah. So you're saying division and focus should be there, that you're trying to build two things which are very different. As you said, that the talent for B2C versus B2B is very different. Almost use the word DNA. The whole organizational DNA, be it talent, be it priorities, be it structure. Maybe in one you are chasing revenue, in one you are chasing engagement, and so on is very different. So it's better to focus on one thing, and for startups, that's actually the right thing to do. If you would to do experiments again, what would you have focused on?
So I think that's very interesting, right? If I had to do, I think the title of this
Secret sauce.
secret sauce to become 100 million is quite interesting, right? If that was the goal, then probably doing the B2B part is probably easier, faster, and you'll get there a lot sooner, and so on. On the other hand, if I was to make that 100 million $1 billion, then I would say that focusing on the much larger problem of employability of young people in India and the solutions around it is a bigger opportunity. I do believe that over there will be multiple iterations of product market fit to understand what they really need, because there were some intrinsic challenges with that business model.
Yeah.
Students would take the test only once,
Yeah.
for example. They would not spend more than a couple of thousand rupees maximum on it. So how much money can you really make out of that?
So the business model might have to be tweaked actually.
Yes. So but that's a much larger problem. I think assessments for engineers alone wasn't good enough a solution for that larger problem.
Yeah.
But if we focus just on that, we would have focused on what else do they need to do that journey.
Fair.
And I think we talk about training for interventions and so on and so forth to be able to solve that, which we thought that we as an organization were not capable of doing. But if probably we were not doing the B2B business, we would have spent time and effort in trying to solve that.
And when you were saying 100 million B2B and you said 1 billion or billion and above B2C, the higher the reward, higher the risk, which
Absolutely.
follow.
That's exactly right. Product market fit for B2B businesses is a lot simpler to achieve.
Yeah.
It's a few people telling you what they need, and as long as there are many of those few people available in the world, you just go and sell that.
Sure.
And that's what we did, right? We had a challenge on market size in India, even on the B2B side. India was what it is.
Hold on that thought, because that's my next question. But before I ask Himanshu the next question, please, if you have any questions, put it on the chat. We'll go on. I'll ask Himanshu questions on the 10 minutes, and then we start taking questions. So exactly, Himanshu, that was my next question. So another question which a lot of people ask is markets. Which market to go for? Right? India could be there, Southeast Asia could be there, outside India, US could be there. Within India, there could be premium markets, non-premium markets, and so on. And in Aspiring Minds, in our journey, we experimented various markets, right? So what was that journey, right? Why did we have to, try different markets, and did going to a new market solve the problem?
Yeah. So the problem we were trying to solve by going to different markets was to increase our addressable market.
And we basically mean international markets.
Yes, by going into international markets. Right? So let me step back a little bit. Right? Even in India, when we were building a B2B business, we went from sector to sector. We had a very sectoral approach to the business. Right? We did very well in IT to begin with, but then we migrated to all kinds of knowledge jobs like PwCs, KPMGs of the world, and so on. Then we started working with BPOs as well, then car manufacturers, and we did that. And our strategy over there was kind of a land and expand strategy. We would go after top 5 logos in that sector, try to convert one of them. If that worked well, and kind of right now people call it a fancy term is your innovation partners, customer innovation partners, right? They were helping you tell you.
You qualify this as your GTM, right? Go-to-market strategy.
Go-to-market strategy was go to the top players and say, look, we have the core technology, we have the right ingredients. Let's see if we can help you, and then build it from there.
Yeah.
And once we have that, then our sales teams will drive it. Once we have the marquee customers happy and the case studies in place, then we can take it to a lot more people, right? So the questions you get cracking the first few customers were way more and a lot more effort, which was kind of led from the founding team. And then eventually, we would scale that. So So yes, we did go sector by sector, but what we realized was our addressable market in India was small. This would never be a 100 crore top line business if you were building in India at that time. And I'm talking about 7, 8 years time. And the market has significantly expanded since then. But I do think that it's still a curtailed market compared to some of the global markets. So we started going to other markets around the world. Some were opportunistic, some were natural, and some were strategic. Right? And I think Philippines was a natural market we went into where we were serving a lot of BPOs in India, and they had a very similar requirement in the Philippines, very concentrated BPO, and we could take
some. A lot of Indians were also in those BPOs.
Exactly. So it was a lot of Indian companies had presence over there, so it was a natural market to go into. Again, not a massive market, but incrementally good and very, very focused. So you didn't need to spend a lot of effort and time to fit your product.
PMF, same PMF which worked in India. Yeah.
I think markets is always tricky, right? And I don't want to be disparaging about any market.
Yeah.
There's some markets which are just fundamentally hard. If you look at Europe as a market, it's a fundamentally harder market compared to Philippines. Every 30, 40 million people, the language changes, for example, right? And now that's not something you can solve for. The nature of transactions changes, so your teams can't really operate. Your good people can't. You're depending on people who don't know you as much to sell for you, to do customer success.
What do you mean by sorry, nature of transactions change?
So, for example, Europe's focus on data protection is way higher.
I see.
So the PMF is not natural.
It is not natural.
And when you're talking about hiring, many of those, there are not many schools over there. The overall market is smaller at a country level. I always feel that for a B2B business, the US is the best market to play it out. And a lot of maybe I'm biased because we also had a lot of success. But first of all, US is not a small country.
Yeah.
But it is homogeneous.
Right.
So it is about one-fourth of India's population, right? So it's not it's of all developed countries, it's like it's as much as Europe's population, right? So it's homogeneous.
Economic size is very big.
Economic size is very big. So I think that kind of gives you one market where you can go and do a PMF and do that. I think that is one thing which I would like to add is that we should not, and I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs do that, we should not assume that your PMF in India is going to work in the US or any other market. It may work, but that assumption just makes it waste a lot of time.
Yeah. If you were building experiments again, would you start by targeting the US market in the beginning, or you still go through the same journey?
So, I think very, very look, I think it's kind of hard to say this now because we've been through both journeys already, so we know a lot of things already, right? But if I was starting this afresh without knowing what if I was starting another HR business, then I would, let's say if we were doing something like payroll, right? Then I think any effort done in India is not very valuable.
Because of market size.
The PMF is bad.
The PMF is bad.
Anything because India payroll works very differently from the US payroll. Right? The system itself is different. Yes, it's very low. And the competition is totally different. Like if you double click into the payroll world, if you're doing background checks, same issue.
Yeah.
There's not much things. But on the other hand, if I was doing rewards and recognition, then I can still build something for multinationals and call more structured corporates in India and potentially transfer them to the US market, right? So I think India is a good place if you are building an IT software business, right? Or let's say a cloud business, on AWS or something. Then you can probably start with India. It's easier to test the product, get it ready.
It's a question of transferability. If there's transferability and the PMF won't have to be done again from scratch, then you can still start it. And you were saying this can be done for rewards and recognition, which is music to my ears because there's one company in which both of us have invested, which is trying to do that journey.
So I wouldn't say that it's easy, but it's still possible. They've already been there. But I think the easiest example is something on the cloud. right? For example, like something you're building a database like MongoDB. Now, the technology stack used in India and the technology stack used in the US.
If it's a technology service for every,
you can just build it.
If it's a business service, you have to see case to case basis.
Yes.
So that's not. Got it. So Himanshu, my last question on the structure question, and then we have more of a discussion with the audience. So the third piece which we think about is escape velocity, right? Getting over the hump. I not ask you this question in context of India, rather because you said that the PMF had to be done again in the US. What do you think really gave us escape velocity in the US, right? And I know we had a few false starts, and so on.
So I think so 2 or 3 things which I would mention, right, and this is again based on our experience, is that first of all, as I said, PMF is fundamentally critical. You cannot assume that your PMF is there. Even when assessments as a product and we were very cutting edge for India, we could the technology was very transferable. The nature of the buyer and the nature of the market was different, and nature of the user was also different, and we had to go about that PMF to make it work. And so I think that's very critical. I think the second bit, in my view, is patience. What I've seen is people, there are some things which take time to happen. Right? And if you considerably thought through the PMF, have an understanding of the market, you can see movement, but you're not seeing velocity. I think you need to give it time to get to a velocity. I have seen that a lot of people continue to switch. Oh, this isn't working, let's try this. Oh, this isn't working, let's try that, right? But sometimes it's probably working, but it's a slow. It is a slow conversation, right? Now, to be honest, right, in assessment business, no one is dying to buy assessments. I'll still come to work and do my job, even if I didn't make a buying decision on
sales
assessment.
cycles are anyway 9 to 12
Yes. It's a long sales cycle, and there is no pressure to close that sale. Now you can start kicking yourself, oh, nothing is happening, right? So I think it's important. I think the other bit, which is getting to escape velocity, is seeding, cradling and seeding your initial customers. You cannot, think that, oh, I've sold it and I move on. Because usually, and that's why US is a great market as well, is that organizations are ready to try products from small companies, unknown companies. They're not, as long as you exist. I've seen Fortune 100 companies, coming and talking to us and saying, oh, sure, let's try it out, right? And so it is fundamental. So I think those are things which I would say are critical, but you have to kind of play to the nature of your business. You cannot generalize and say, oh look, they are growing so fast, why am I not growing so fast, right? Or that it's for them something. Some things are just the nature of a business, right? And it's going to take its own sweet time to do it. So for an entrepreneur, it's about continuing to fix those things, and at some point of time, you will see that acceleration coming in.
So you have to be patient. Just one question, more question on the ground, more practical question, we've been talking more strategy. So you said PMF might have to be done again. So a founder who has a company in India has to do PMF again in the US, so wants to go to the US. So are you recommending he hires a sales guy in the US, hire a product guy in the US, or what is the talent strategy to make a PMF to the US? He or she should move to the US.
It's not as critical. Oh, absolutely. Right. I think, look, the problem is not easy. While US is a great market, everyone knows it's a great market. So you are not alone. There will be a lot of companies, there will be a lot of startups targeting it, a lot of startups in India or around the world targeting the US market. So it's a hard market as well. But it's a very large market, so you'll find your place. I think why I feel, and again, there might be other people in the organization who are equally equipped to do it, but I think you need a more, someone who can, what I felt different is that someone who understands the business deep enough to know what can be done to be able to convert this and have enough knowledge and information rather than, someone who's going to carry a catalog and say, oh, I have this stuff, can you buy it, right? Which doesn't really work.
So in our story, Himanshu went to honors to move to the US and sell the product, and the false start before that was trying to hire some people in the US to sell it. So with this, let's take a few questions from the audience.
Someone is asking, what is the current valuation of your company?
So there, Himanshu, what's the current valuation? Maybe I can also answer. There's no current valuation of the company because it's already sold to another company. Do you want to add? The company doesn't exist anymore, so there's no valuation.
So we sold it to a private equity which merged it into the largest player in this space as a way to acquire a very efficient team, a very large business, and a more evolved business model of a SaaS business and a platform SaaS business. So and they were in the company they merged us with was very much larger, had been around for 40 years, but had been around for 40 years, so they did a lot of things which were like decades behind where the market had moved. They were not really a technology business. So we sold for a little under $100 million, and now I would say the Aspiring Minds business is probably the largest HR business in the country.
You mean the standalone Aspiring Minds business within SHO in India?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you decide on the pricing of your SaaS products when you are selling it to the corporates? Like, how to decide whether you are underselling them, and how did you guys came up with the pricing while you were selling the AMCATs?
Look, let me repeat that question because I'm not sure people can relate to the question, and there's a very important question, right? That how do you determine pricing of your SaaS product when you are selling it to corporates, and how can you be sure you're not underpricing it, right? And what was our experience on that?
You have to go and sell it to figure out what people are ready to buy it for. So there is no real science to pricing. I can give you a live example. The first IT company we sold a product to, we had bid. Let's assume for relative terms, we had bid 990 rupees. They bought it for 60 rupees, and eventually our average price was 225. So what we originally bid was low. They just negotiated on that bid. So I always feel that pricing is about what people are willing to pay. The more playbook answer is you should always determine value creation. What value are you attributing to it? So even today I lead global pricing for us, and what happens is, like for example, a retail store, let's say a Big Bazaar, which doesn't exist now, or a Reliance Retail, will pay a lot lower for an assessment of a retail candidate than an IT company will pay. Now you might say, oh, this is the same assessment, you have to buy it at the same price, right?
But by the nature of their
the value which is being created for them, right? And if you're hiring someone who you pay 25,000 rupees a month versus someone you pay 2 lakh rupees a month, there will be a difference in the price at which they will buy that assessment. I think this is about B2B pricing, right? It's value-based pricing. You have to calibrate. It takes some time. It's not cast in stone. I think the bigger issue cast in stone is on pricing is free versus paid, for example. Those are the bigger, trickier things which people have to answer. But I think on the B2C side, the AMCAT price, we started at like 100 rupees, 200 rupees, eventually went to 1200 rupees, and it was always, I think the value of the product was always way more than whatever we charged for. And so whenever we increased pricing, we had no issues as such in losing.
there was no
elasticity.
No, yeah, and I mean, couple of thoughts which I was having is one that, and I think Tarun said this in the beginning. Tarun Khanna from our business school was a mentor to us that price surveying is really a bad idea. So if you think to send a survey to people and ask them that what will you buy it on and determine that, though in business schools that is taught, is really a bad idea when someone has to write a check versus to say in a survey there are two different notions. The other thing which Himanshu I remember is that at our time there was an incumbent, Veritrack, right? And it was pricing itself at some value. And I recall that we always priced more than it because we said the value of a product is much higher than what Veritrack is giving. So a lot of entrepreneurs again, which we talked to while we were discussing the ACE program, they say that the value they are bringing is a lower pricing. Right? So we have this discussion which others are doing and they say, hey, but we are cheaper. What is your view?
So that's a very bad business strategy.
Sure.
At least I believe so.
Yeah.
Just being cheap never gets you far. You can start off with that. You can prove the value of the product, but low price is not a. You need to, how we look at it cheaper, faster, or better, you need to have at least two of them. If you're faster, and faster is a kind of relative term in technology, we use that a lot more. But if you have to have at least two values on the page. You can be better and cheaper, then you will win for sure. But just being cheaper never works. Just being
So that's a good framework. To have 2 out of 3 on cheaper, better, or faster. Right?
in your industry, your faster will fundamentally change.
Sure.
How to lay initial groundwork in the US before the founder actually moves to the US for the product?
That's a good question. How do you lay the initial groundwork in the US before you move it? First, groundwork is to convince your family and your child if you have a child, and maybe Himanshu can answer on and beyond that.
No, of course, you have to be willing as a family to move. It's not a light commitment. It should not. I don't think the framework of, oh, I'm going to be there for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, in a quarter or in a month will really works, because what I've seen is that it is hard to sustain. It is very tolling on people, and we started with that, and then we realized that it's not really working, and you end up not doing a lot of things you would have done if you were there. I think you can start off. The groundwork is for the founder is actually going there to do the groundwork to build the US presence, right? But you can start off by acting like you were in the US. Start to build out your leads. If you are planning to hire a team there, start to do that hiring, assuming you were in the US, figuring out which city you want to be, what's the right place for you to be, and things like that. I think, but yeah, and of course you need to have the money to be there, right? And but yeah, it's not. The idea shouldn't be, I'm going to go there, try for 3 months, and then figure out. Because 3 months will be, that answer would always be, nothing is happening and come back. Right? You have to plan for a year or more. And then, make sure that you have the money for it and you have the wherewithal to last it, because the first 6 months will be hard. And then you will eventually start. On the other hand, the US is a very welcoming country. They are happy with external people coming, building businesses there. They are quite open to expats, most parts of the US. So those problems don't happen. It is designed in a way that you can settle down there very easily, very quickly. So unlike China, for example, which is much harder to settle into because of cultural differences, language, food, and stuff like that.
Just 2 comments on that. Right? One, US, in my understanding, can bleed you very quickly. So you really need to have the money and do that calculation where just because of the costs of anything and everything are magnified quite a bit. One thing which Himanshu I recall is the US website, right? Which we did. We had a India-facing website, and one might say, why is there an India-facing website and a different US-facing website? But I recall we did a new one which gave us very different results. Any thought on that in hindsight?
Yeah, so look, I think US is a very, is a very view it, feel it, buy it kind of market, and not a tell me what you can do market.
Not a tech.
Yes, the first conversation start to, there people actually sit and read the website. Unlike in India where people don't really read anything, right?
Yeah.
They expect you to feed them. So it's a self-fed market. They want to see the products, and they want to feed the products even if they will never log into the product even after they buy it, right? So that was critical. I think in insight for us, India website was shit. That is a bigger issue for us, because look, even if no one is reading your website, at least you should write the right things. In our marketing, I think we always try to sell everything we have, and so
the best part is that I and Himanshu would have been finally quarreling that who got the website made and not ready to take the responsibility after it turned out to be that. So the US website finally then became a global website.
Yeah.
USA and India, right? So you are basically saying it was more investment in the website, more thoughtfully built rather than how we did it in India, because in India it didn't seem to be the major driver of sales.
Yes, and you're doing a more PMF also, right?
Yeah.
So when you're doing a PMF, that means you are redefining. Like in India, the challenge is that students have nothing on the resume.
Correct.
And you need a test to determine. Now US tests will not default to graduate hiring. And most of the customers were not graduate hiring customers to
So the
begin with.
problem statement might even
The
change.
problem statement itself is changing, right? So then you have to start thinking about it. I think we, in Insight in India, we used to, the website we earlier had talked about what we do. I think what changed in the US, what value we create.
Sure.
So I think there was a shift in that. People want to hear that first. How you do it is a different thing than what value what can you do for me. And it's not, oh, I can do a test for you.
Sure.
It could be, for example, with our Automata product, we used to pitch that you can actually find people who may actually fail your typical tests because it
So
uses
they're more
AI.
pitching of ROI.
Yes, what's the return and based on that. But I think that should be what it always should be,
Sure.
rather than
Sure. Then
product specification saying this is the voltage it operates and then this is the
Right.
that's the second.
How many more questions do we have?
Couple of.
Let's say both of them.
Did you bundle managed services along with SaaS for US market? And how did you think about the pricing in the early days in the US market and the GTM strategy?
Okay. So the first one is that did you bundle managed services with the SaaS product in the US market? The second one is a little broad, but pricing strategy in the US and GTM.
So yes, we did further managed services. The nature of the problem, there are some companies didn't need it, but there are some solutions which we had needed managed services, which we.
Is it correct to say that in fact our customers in India were more hungry for managed services than
Yes,
the US?
absolutely. So our customers in India, as I said, they like to be fed. So we would do whatever it needs to be done for
You
them.
know you need to still go and sell to the Indian customers, so don't say a lot of.
We are happy to sell them, feed them, right? So that's customer first. That's the motto of any B2B sales business. But in terms of pricing for the US, again we calibrate. So again, there were incumbents in the US. There were a lot of people who were already selling in the US. I think the pricing in the US was what is more interesting. As an after, as I've learned more about globally about pricing, is the model of pricing rather than what's the absolute value, right? So you could have what we call transactional SaaS, where they pay for every transaction, like every assessment. But you will feel, oh, this is much more valuable than a subscription-based business, where you can, you subscribe to a set of assessments, and you have an annual recurring contract with them on that. And I think there's a thin line between the two, but it fundamentally changes the way you do business and the way your customers look at you. Because with every transaction, if they're paying, then they get a little more worried about all the transactions they're doing. On the other hand, if they have a subscription, they push themselves to use it more. And only when you use it more, then you see the real value of the system coming out, right? And you start embedding it in your organization. But those are questions where it depends on the nature of the product to be able to really say what would work well and so on. But other than that, you can always, if you're already selling in the US, you can in India or in a different geography and taking it to the US, then you can use currency conversion kind of stuff to say that you could typically charge between 3 to 5 times more in the US than you are charging in India. And that is true for business applications and the works. It may not be true for data, like the cloud or technology stuff. But in general, US corporations are going to be, the average account value will be much larger than what you will see in India for the same size of people or usage in those two countries.
And I think, sorry. No, I'm just saying that you were making an interesting point about the pricing model, right? And it could be per transaction, it could be per employee and so on, right? And one of the points which you made was that if it is a subscription, let's say per employee, then they would use it more and not worry about using it and so on. And I think the flip side is that you are also getting more visibility on revenue than you would have gotten a per transaction. More reliability,
more predictable,
more reliable. And am I correct to say that those businesses would also be valued higher if you have contracts which are
you always get a better multiple on subscription-based businesses than transaction.
transaction-based businesses? So it's quite critical in some sense on what kind of contracts you have.
And you can have a business model which kind of is a blend of a subscription and a transaction business as well. But and a lot of people do that quite successfully, especially in payment businesses. So yeah, it's but you're right. I don't think, for example, should get dissuaded away from a transactional SaaS business because they do exist and they have value. And our India business was always transactional SaaS. Even big chunk of our US business was transactional SaaS. We just started to move to subscription SaaS towards the later half of our journey in the US. So, but yes, those are things one should evaluate. Pricing is, is not is something which, as we discussed for India as well, is to be calibrated.
Sure. Do we have any last question?
How you selected your core team when you started? Along with that, what is your vision now outside of Aspiring Minds?
And why?
Sorry?
And why?
Okay. So how do we select the core team at the beginning? We selected each other for good or bad reasons, but that was not a very thoughtful decision. But beyond that,
So yeah, it's an interesting question, right? I think at least for Aspiring Minds journey, a lot of the core functions for a long period of time were split between the two of us, right? And over time we did get people have heard us fairly late. That was a timing thing also, right? When we started in 2008, there were not a lot of people who were wanting to become startup entrepreneurs. Or even join startups, right? They were very far and few, and we couldn't pay much anyways. So it wasn't that we could attract a lot of talents, So and neither did we raise a lot of money that we could change that, right? So I wouldn't take it from the Aspiring Minds context, but in a more generic context, I think the core team is a lot about, in my view, capability, intent, and readiness to do hard work. Of course, there are certain areas like if the founding team does not have core technology skills, right, and your product is a technology product, then imagining that someone else will build it for you is not part of your core team and not, ingrained into the business very well is very hard. So yeah, I would always recommend that the founding team should have that capability and to do that. Similarly, there are people who, one of the founding or core teams has, if you're building a B2B business, has to drive the sales function. And it's not a part-time job, sales can never be a part-time job in my view. It has to be the full-time job of a founder or a core team member who is like always on it. So I think it depends on the nature of the business, but you need to sort out your core departments quite well. Technology is one, sales is the other, operations is the third big one. And as you begin, you will probably be wearing multiple hats, and as those functions grow, you need to have core team members running those functions.
so you're saying the answer in two ways. One, you're saying it's verticalized, so what skills do you need? And then you're saying some general personality traits, right? Like hardworking, hunger in the belly, try to push the envelope, and so on. So the hard question, what is the vision now, outside?
So no, I think talking to you, that's the vision you want to help a lot of. I think at least for me, it is that I've learned a lot in these 10, 12 years. A lot of things we shouldn't do in a business. If I'm hoping I can share some of that with people who are looking to start businesses and have them grow and build. I think there is, a massive opportunity in India for the next 10 years, 20 years of building businesses. We are a large market in India. We have proven that we can service any global requirements, be it in technology, be it in services, be it in manufacturing. So I think that's at least what we want to do, and ACE is an initiative which we're doing exactly for that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, ACE is, as Himanshu was saying, being able to help, build startups successful, and also because we believe that startups, one is just, the startup and entrepreneur and building a big company, but it can solve problems at scale for the nation. And Himanshu is, agreed to be both a jury member and a mentor for the ACE program. So that will be very, very helpful. But look at some of the interesting problems which startup as a vehicle can solve and help them scale and build companies that don't do the mistakes which we did in our journey, just because we have now the advantage of hindsight, right? So that's the larger vision. Himanshu, quickly summarize 3-4 things which I heard from you today, then we'll end the session in the next 2 minutes. One thing which you talked about is to think about value creation, where your product is creating value, and be very, very clear on that, right? And focus on that. Second, we talked about being able to distribute. right? And platform being a way to distribute, building a good platform can be one of the ways. The third, when we talk about business models and markets and so on, we talk about not having your attention divided in two things, right? Have a single, for a startup, it's important to have your attention on single business model or GTM, which you are trying to focus on, and this was in respect to the B2B versus B2C discussion, which we then we talk about market size, right? And how some businesses can be constrained in market size if you are building it in India or for a particular target audience and so on. It's generally better to think of it earlier than later in your business. Even if you are following a strategy of starting in with one market, then moving to the other, you should at least have that vision of where you are going. And then you talked about that how the journey of PMF might not be a one-time journey. It might be a journey which might repeat from sector to sector or might repeat from geography to geography. And that's what one should be ready for. And the need of probably founders' attention when the PMF is happening again rather than someone who doesn't deeply understand the business. And the last point, which was interesting, very practical, was that and a part of GTM working closely with your initial customers is something which really helps you probably grab the market. So thanks Himanshu for coming and all these insights. Thanks everyone for attending this session. This session is also be recorded, so it will be put out on YouTube and we'll share the link with all of you. And you can refer back to it if you need and suggest it to your friends. Of course, we talked about a lot of things today, and of course, a 12-year journey cannot be compressed in 1 hour. But I hope this will give you some points to think about as you build your business. And once again, go to changeengine.in to look at the ACE program, and if it is of interest, please apply to it. Thank you very much.